We thought maybe it was time to do a little spotlight on this species, which is probably many people's favorite. This is Nepenthes hamata, and this particular one is a lumut form BE3380, and it's very spectacular as hamatas go. Relatively easy to grow, I suppose. The thing about hamata, first thing I'll mention, is that when they're very young, they're extremely difficult. They're not the easiest plants in tissue culture, and they're certainly not the easiest plants to wean in the nurseries. But once they get beyond a certain size, they grow very well indeed. We've got quite a few plants here. We're growing plants in this nursery really to be for breeding purposes, and we used to grow them for show. Now we're not so keen on that anymore, but we'd still like looking at them. So breeding purposes or not, we want them to look good. So here we have an example. I'll use this plant as an example of a typical specimen in this nursery. So how do we actually get so many pictures on the plant? That's one thing that might interest people. Yes, we're trying to flower them, so we do allow one leader to vine up towards the roof of the nursery. But the way to get your Nepenthes to be bushy and produce lots and lots of pictures is to simply prune them. Here's an example. You can see that's been cut, and you can see the node beneath it has gone, and probably the one beneath that is on its way as well. So you can simply turn what would be a vining plant into a bush. There's another example. We cut that. I know we're trying to flower it, but we still like looking at them, so we do cut most of the leaders off. There's the next node going down there, and the point being, it produces a bushier, better looking plant, which is fun, because we do grow the plants for pleasure, not just for commercial reasons. Otherwise we wouldn't be here. And the other thing is, if you do leave one leader growing and you cut all the others off, the plant will put its energy into that leader, which will then grow taller and get bigger and flower, hopefully, all being well. So there we go, quite a lot of plants in this nursery. Here's another really good example. I don't know if we can see where the leaders are being cut off because the moss has overgrown them. So you can see a lot of pictures poking up out of the moss. One of my favorite things about the moss is that it just looks great with Nepenthes. It's so natural. There you go. That leader's been cut off, and beneath that, you can probably just see that node is starting to go. So particularly with this species, they look great if you trim off the leaders and let the basals come up, or let the nodes beneath the leader grow. And it actually applies to very many Nepenthes. Really, not all that many Nepenthes look their best when they're vining, unless you're trying to produce upper pictures, which of course is the holy grail for some other species. This one also. These particular plants I'm looking at here don't have uppers, but the upper picture on hamata is spectacular. And the upper picture on this particular hamata, the lumut form, is probably, well, I think it's the most spectacular upper picture of any hamata, and probably the most clawed species in the genus. So we're just looking at the lower pictures on these plants. I love the hairs on the lid. Look at that. And cultivation, well, they appear to be growing in moss, don't they? But they're not. I'm actually going to, in front of you, dig away some of this moss. And yes, we will be doing a video on how to grow moss. There's been a lot of interest in our moss. In fact, that one's too difficult to get to. I'll go to this one up here. Let me see. Okay, they're all so covered in moss, I don't really want to dig a hole in it, but I'm going to have to find one, as I promised to do that for you. Let's go to this one here. Okay, this is hamata. Appears to be growing in moss, but let's get underneath that moss. And when we get down to it, it's coconut fibre. I'll dig some out. There we go. Coconut fibre, it's actually a mixture of the chips. There's a chip and finely chopped fibre, and oh look, there's a pellet of Osmocote. That's a giveaway, isn't it? So yes, we use Osmocote. We'll talk about that later. It's a great way to grow the plants, in my opinion, providing you pick the right formulation of Osmocote and use it properly. So that's how we fertilise our plants, with Osmocote. Still, I'm getting ahead of myself. This is the one of the collections of the Lumut hamata we have here. And now I'll just go to another part of the nursery and see if we can find some upper pictures. Following on from that last clip about hamata, this is the part about the upper pitchers, and we're now in the male flowering nursery part of it. I've often mentioned this nursery. I've never shown it on a video before today. It's a mess in that we just let the plants vine as they will. It's a completely different aspect to it than the female flowering nursery. And it is in the female flowering nursery, although it's a male. It's a single clone and it's a male. We keep it in the female flowering nursery because we like to look at it. But if they dare to flower, we shift them here with the boys, and this is where they remain. So down here we've got some upper pitchers. So down here, it's just the way the plants are lying. These are quite close to ground level. This is Nepenthes hamata lumut BE3880. Sorry, 3380. I beg your pardon. 3380 upper pitcher, and look at the teeth on that. Quite remarkable. They're all like that. The Tambosisi hamata does not have upper pitchers even approaching this, but it's still a great species, or great form of the species. We'll show that in a different video. It breeds easily, and the hybrids with Tambosisi hamata also have superb uppers, just the same as if they were crossed with this lumut form.